Welcome to EmComm Solutions. Jake here. Today we're going to talk Meshtastic best practices. This applies to new users and even users who've been using it for a while. I've been using Meshtastic for over 2.5 years and I'm still learning and it's still making adjustments to get the most out of the experience. Now, by adjusting your settings, picking the right roles, making sure you have the right updates, some smart setup tips, which we'll talk here today, you're going to get better range, longer battery life, and most importantly, in my opinion, you're going to not spam the network, the local network. And that really applies to people who are operating in a congested area where Meshtastic is widely used. So take all these tips in consideration. I want to give Ben from Lincoln County Messaging. I'll link his information down below. He created this document that I've pulled a lot of my information from, and I think it is definitely worth sharing this information with you because it really helps. I think it's going to help people get the most out of their experience. So first we're going to talk roles because there's tends to be a lot of confusion in the role setting or roles settings. Quite honestly, I've definitely been confused over the years of what role was exactly correct for me or for how I had the node deployed. So try to break this down in plain language so that it's best understood by the masses, right? So router, this is best for perfectly placed nodes with a 360-degree horizon view, basically mountaintops, towers, tall buildings, like Austin Mesh. I know he has one up on top of a tall building there in Austin. Perfect situation for that. Router late. Well, what the heck is that? Well, this is perfect for not perfectly placed nodes. And it avoids disrupting the mesh in shadowed areas. So for example, you have a fixed node or an infrastructure node set and there's something blocking it to one side of the, a building, a mountain, some sort of obstructions, and especially using an omnidirectional antenna, not like a Yagi or a directional antenna. Now you're looking at, you're basically pushing information places you don't need to. So client mute, okay, back up, client. So best for your handhelds, right? Your personal use nodes, helps forward messages when needed, right? Client mute is for handhelds when you already have a personal relay nearby. So a personal relay, for example, would be you've got a infrastructure node mounted on your building, or it could even be out in your yard on a pole that basically so that you can pick up what's going on in the mesh network and it'll relay it to inside to where you have your handheld that you actually monitor. That's, that way you're getting those messages. So that's where that could be used. So avoid repeater. So this is something, if you have radio experience and you hear the word repeater, you're like, oh, perfect. I have this node up on a tower or a pole outside my house. It's a repeater. That's what I thought in the beginning, and I used this setting early on in my Meshtastic experience, and come to find out it really causes more harm than good, and probably should just avoid it unless you really, really know what you're doing. And in that case, you're probably not watching this video. But anyways, timing and broadcast settings or transmit settings. I know the word broadcast has some negative connotations in the amateur radio world, but this is Meshtastic, so let's roll with it. So why intervals matters: it reduces unnecessary traffic and keeps your mesh network healthy for everyone, right? Best settings by node type: infrastructure nodes or fixed nodes. Turn on the unmessageable flag. I believe this is a 2.6 and above feature, which is nice because if you look in your node list, you can see ones that are in the unmessageable, so you're not trying to send direct messages to that node making contact because that person's telling you that they don't monitor that. Typically in your infrastructure nodes, some people have them set up to where they're connected to a computer or something like that, but in most cases a lot of people aren't monitoring that node. So node info, change that to 24 hours, position every 72 hours, or you could turn position off. There is some benefits of having it on. for the network topology. And then your metrics every hour, smart position off. It's not moving. That's what smart position's for. So you can just turn that feature off. I like to set to a fixed position and then change that position so it's not the exact location of that node for personal privacy concerns. And then personal relay nodes, which is basically your infrastructure node or a node that you have placed somewhere like outside the building. It could be, on a balcony, but maybe not great for some sort of router or something like that. You could set it to the 0 hop counts to keep your traffic local, because you're basically just want it to be able to pick up what's going on in the local mesh and relay that inside to your personal node or your handheld node that you're actually monitoring. So handheld nodes, your node info every hour, smart position every 10 minutes plus, if you're using that feature at all, and then metrics every 3 hours. And then if you have a weather station, minimal broadcast, hop counts as low as possible. So that's basically where we're going to go there. Firmware tips. I know there's some out there that don't like the fact that they have to update their firmware frequently. But there's reasons behind that with anything technological, your phones, your laptops, everything nowadays. They're fixing either bugs, vulnerabilities, in that firmware so that you get the best out of it and your privacy and security are protected. So that's my main reason for telling people they should update to 2.6 and above. Additionally, you're going to get that next hop routing benefits that they've put in there. So that's my argument for it. If you want to roll the old stuff, you're out in the middle of nowhere. You do you. So stable versus unstable releases, when to use each. So best practice here would be for infrastructure, I would recommend using the latest stable version, because typically these aren't easy to update. You've got to climb a tower, you got to get on top of a building or whatever to be able to update it. It might be a pain. So you don't want to put unstable version on there, the alpha version of the firmware, and then it have issues, and now you have to go back up the tower or back up onto that building or whatever it is to get access to it, to roll it back to a stable version. That's a user preference, but that's my recommendation, and obviously Ben's recommendation. Also, handhelds, stable or unstable, depends on your preferences. What you're getting, how much I would recommend staying with stable until you've learned a little bit more about Meshtastic if you're a newer user, before you really start trying to, try out unstable versions. So common mistakes to avoid: repeater when unnecessary. I've made that mistake as early on. I was using that just based off of I am an amateur radio operator, and I was like, yeah, repeater, I want it to repeat messages. That's great. It's up on top of my house. Sure, why not? No. Just avoid it unless you really know what you're doing. Broadcast positions too often. Yeah, you don't really need to be broadcasting position all the time. I know a lot of people don't like even broadcasting the position, but that's just, it floods every data packet that's going out there. So anytime your position updates, those settings matter. You may not realize it's updating it, but that time interval that you've added in there or was there by default is broadcasting that information. Leaving hop counts too high or adjusting them above, like the standard default is 3, unless you really know why you're increasing those hop counts above the default. Just don't do it. You're going to end up spamming the local network, especially in your congested areas, whether intentionally or unintentionally. If you're doing it intentionally, you probably don't care about what I'm saying, but yeah, I know that's happening. Some of the Discord groups, I see it all the time. So, and then not updating your firmware. This basically, I think a lot of times when I get comments like, hey, I just got a Meshtastic device, it's not working, I'm not able to communicate with people or something like that, in probably a lot of those cases, they haven't updated their firmware and there's some compatibility issues with messaging or not even seeing other nodes. So update your firmware is my recommendation, and many others. So, all right, so pro tips for new users or anyone out there that might find this information useful. I've done videos about finding other users in your area. Join local Meshtastic communities or mapping projects. MeshSense is a great mapping project. There's many others. I've done videos. I'll link one of those videos here at the end, kind of get you started. Use solar panels for remote infrastructure nodes. This is how I have all my infrastructure nodes that I've built set up, and it works great, especially if you pick the right panel. My recommendation, and this was based off of what I found online and other Meshtastic communities, is the SoShine 6-watt panel. It is perfect for the setup, and it even works. I've had nodes that have stayed up for months with poor solar exposure, because in the Pacific Northwest, where those are located, we don't get a lot of sun, especially certain times of year. So they've worked. Keep spare nodes for testing settings before applying them to critical locations. So having a couple, make adjustments, do your own testing, figure it out. That's kind of a fun part about Meshtastic, a hobby, is learning these things, and then now making those tweaks to, yes, like an infrastructure node on way up on top of a building or a tower that is very complicated and time consuming to go make these updates. So you can kind of play around with those, and then use a descriptive node name that helps others identify you. Just keeping the default Meshtastic 1234 in there, that's a simple thing to change, and it can kind of help you connect with people if you put something in information in there. I know a lot of people, some people put their Discord group links, their Telegram group links, their website, whatever, something, so that you can now connect with those people and grow that mesh network, and maybe meet other people that are like-minded, and you can learn from them, they can learn from you, and you can grow the mesh network in your local area. That's a great way to do it. So that's a tip I think that could really help people out, but your preference, right? So I hope this helped describe some of this. I will provide documents that have more links to documents that have more information, more detail, that might help explain some of this to you better. I was trying to keep this video around 10 minutes and not lose everybody halfway through. So hopefully you watched all the way through. If you did and you found use in this video, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, provide feedback down below, check out our links down below, social media links, websites, affiliate links, all kinds of good stuff down there, and stay tuned for more emergency communication solutions videos. Thanks for watching.